Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode with Standalone, where we are talking how to stand alone in your finances. Standalone is all about taking leadership of your life, not living a life of default, but learning how to direct your life. How do we go from being ordinary to extraordinary? And I can't think of anyone better than Phil Palumbo. So Phil is the CEO, Chief Investment Officer, founder of Palumbo Wealth Management. And for a lot of us, we're going to have a great conversation about something that I love to talk about, money. And I know, Phil, you have to love to talk about money too, but it's a very uncomfortable subject for a lot of people. And so I wanted to have a discussion with you today about just understanding how important it is to understand what money is, how to use it. I love that you talk about learn how to protect it, grow it, and transfer it. So thank you for being with us today. And if we can open up with, just an understanding of money, right? Why in today's world, Phil, can we not just make money anymore? Why do we have to also take it to the other level and then protect it, grow it, and then learn how to transfer it to subsequent generations?
Yeah, first of all, Sabrina, thank you for having me. And so money's not everything in life, as we all know. Money doesn't make you happy. Money is a really, really important part of everybody's life. And what I always tell people all the time, it's like a three-legged stool, right? When you think about life, first is you have to have your health. If you have your health, then it's family. Because if you have your health, you can enjoy your family. And then money is the third part, because without money, you really can't enjoy your family, do the things you want to do in your life, to celebrate life. So money is an important means to an end, right? That's the first thing I always say. The second thing is you can make all the money in the world, but if you spend it all, you open your eyes, 20 years goes by and you have nothing to show, which happens a lot. I don't care if you make 500,000 a year. I don't care if you make $1 million a year, $2 million a year. This happens for all different types of income earners out there. So like I tell people all the time, you have to take a very successful money manager, Franklin Templeton. He used to live his life where every dollar he made, 50 cents he would put away, and then the other 50 cents he would live his life on, whatever he had to do. And then over time, he became a billionaire because he was a very successful investor and he was very disciplined to that, right? So I'd say the two biggest mistakes that people make is first, they have to understand conceptually how important money will be in your life, besides your health and your family, as you think about things going forward. Number one. Number two, life goes by fast, right? So the more money you put away today and compound that by investing it over a 10, 20, 30-year period, the better place you'll be versus waiting 15 years and say, hey, when I make X amount of dollars, that's when I'll start saving. And people put it off and put it off and put it off. Next thing you know, they open up their accounts, they look at their retirement accounts, and there's very low balances in there and they can't do what they want to do. So you really have to say to yourself, okay, what do I bring home after tax dollars, right? Put away 20, 30 cents of that at least. The rest you could spend and enjoy your life and things you want to do. And then once you put that 30 cents away, the other mistake, Sabrina, that people make all the time, and I get this question from people all the time as well. Hey, Phil, I have X amount of cash in the bank. When should I put the money into the investment strategy? Or when is the market going to crash so I could put my money to work, right? So, and people have been asking this question for the past 3 years. And I asked them, well, do you still have the same cash you had in the bank the past 3 years? And the answer is yes. So the other big mistake people make is they procrastinate investing their money because they're concerned that they're going to get in at the wrong time. So having too much cash and then trying to time the market are two critical mistakes that people make. So you got to forget about that. You have to say, okay, here's how much money I'm making. Here's how much money I'm saving, and I'm putting it into an investment strategy. And I'm not going to worry about the ups and downs and what's going on day to day with the economy and the markets. I'm going to worry about this 20 years from now, or whatever it is when you want to make work optional for yourself, which is a big term that I use. So those are the key things. If you can ingrain in people, it makes a tremendous difference in their life over time.
I love this because your company also, it puts the customer first, it makes sure that, for your company, you're doing right by the customer, and you've helped to navigate a lot of families through some turbulent times over the past 20 years. So I really want to get into this with you today because, the truth is, Phil, a lot of people, we are in the midst of a turbulent time right now. It just doesn't feel that way because there's been a lot of money printed. So we're kind of like, is this a bad time? Prices are going up, but people are spending, and it's really confusing. And I want to drill into this with you so that we make better decisions right now. Don't procrastinate on this. But before I do that, I really wanted to get to know about you. For me and my family, a lot of us, we just take on the habits of our parents, right? If our parents were good with money, then we become good with money. If our parents were not so good with money, unfortunately, those habits can follow us also. How did you get into this world of wealth management? Was it something that you grew up and always knew? Was it something that intrigued you? Did you have a bad thing that happened and then you said, like, I got to read about this, I got to learn about this? I wanted to know, like, what made you get into this path and excel in the world of wealth management?
Yeah, so I grew up in a town called East Meadow, which is on Long Island, and my father's a blue collar electrician, so middle class family. My mom stayed home to take care of my brother and my sister and myself, and oftentimes my father was laid off, 3 months out of the year, 5 months, sometimes even 6 months. So money for our family was a struggle at times. My dad worked really hard. He did everything he possibly can do, and I give him a lot of credit, being that came here from Italy when he was 6 years old, and his parents really didn't come from any money at all. So he did great considering where he came from, right? But the whole idea that he never really went through life as it relates to money, having peace of mind, it was always a struggle. So for me, it was when I got into this wealth management space, if I could really coach my clients on minimizing mistakes as it relates to financial planning and investing, and coaching them through that so they could have peace of mind as they go through their life, especially during their retirement years, that's how I thought about it. So that's the passion I've always had. And it comes through when I'm in front of a client, because it's something that's authentic and genuine, something I felt growing up. And then when I was 13 years old, that's when I really first started working in the pizzeria restaurant, literally cleaning dishes, mopping floors. And then when my friends were coming home from high school after sports, playing and hanging out, I would go to work at a restaurant until 11, 12 o'clock at night, do homework until 2 o'clock in the morning. Then college was the same thing. I played Division I lacrosse. So we practiced before school, then I had school, then after school we practiced, then I worked at a country club at the time. It's the same thing, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning and at night, and then I'd do homework till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I learned a strong work ethic when I was growing up, which when you think about the clients I serve, it's people that have built their businesses over 20, 30, 40 years. And when they come to me, they've built their wealth. So the key thing is, they can't afford to lose half because they can't go back and repeat what they just accomplished. So the combination of achieving peace of mind and the work ethic that I learned growing up, I've instilled that in my practice. And I really believe that clients see right through that in a positive way. And that's really, really helped me to get where I am today. Thank God, so that's the storyline behind that.
Yeah. Do you feel that, like, when you were in the country club, sometimes we get positioned with different people? Like, what were you thinking as a child? If you grow up a certain way and then you're like, wait, what do these people do? Like, how can I learn? Like, what did that do for you as a child?
It's really interesting, right? So, and I don't mean this in a braggadocious way, but so when I was working in the country club, I was like, oh my gosh, a country club. Like, my dad's blue collar, middle class
Yeah.
background. Here I am in a country club around these really wealthy people. And in Maryland, Towson, this particular country club was known to be a super wealthy club. So as I started to get used to being around those people, and it was very natural, believe it or not, which I was surprised at myself, but it really was natural. And one of the waitresses asked the general manager, joking around, who's the best waiter or waitress out of all of us here? And the guy pointed to Phil because I was the best with the members of the club in terms of socializing with them, making them comfortable and happy and stuff like that. So that really gave me a lot of confidence. Say, gosh, like I could kind of do this and I could hang in that area. of the wealthy people, and that's another reason what kind of motivated me to get into this practice as well. So it was definitely different, but fortunately I adapted, which I thought was really interesting. But I was
Yeah,
nervous. I was nervous going into it, though. Don't get me wrong.
I think that's a true thing for a lot of people. Our environment plays such a major role. And then when you put yourself in a different and new environment, it's always going to feel uncomfortable. But then you can pick up so much more. You can gain so much more. You can really grow from it. So I love that you shared that, because a lot of people feel this way, right? You said some magical words are peace of mind. And I think that a lot of people, I'm sure you know this, that the number one fear of aging people is not death, it is outliving their money.
Yeah.
And like this is very shocking. So, in terms of investing versus saving, I wanted to talk to you about this because a lot of people today, we are living in a spending generation where people are just, make money, spend it, because they think, well, I can always make more. And unfortunately, there will come a time where it isn't about earning, it is about living off of what you have earned and how is that money growing for you. So what do you train your people to really understand about money so that they can start as early as possible instead of waiting till it's too late? Because it's so nice that you have clients that have accumulated this. I just believe that if you can't save $5 when you have $10, you won't be able to save 50,000 when you have 100,000. So like, how do you train this when you have younger clients to get them to understand? Because there's a lot of young people making a lot of money right now, and they think like this is how it's always going to be. And unfortunately, that just isn't the case, right? There are the ups and the downs. So how do you really instill this behavior so that people understand that there is a difference between saving and investing? Some people say, don't save, invest everything. I just wanted to hear your input on this. Like, what is savings to you and what is investing to you?
Saving is much more important than investing by far, right? It's the habit of saving. It's like my father, when I was, I think, like 15 or 16 years old, there was a service, if you remember back in the day, to get somebody's phone number, you would call this service and it would cost 25 cents. It would be on the phone bill. So my father used to get mad because I used to do that a couple of times a month. And I said to my father, I said, Dad, I said, it's only 25 cents. He goes, Phil, because every penny matters, right? And that's the same thing with savings. People have to get the mindset that every penny, every dollar matters that you're saving, because that's going to add up to something over time. So I would say the first habit, Sabrina, that people really have to do, get in the mindset of saving a percentage of the money that they're taking home, the most that they possibly can. Now, you don't want to disrupt somebody's lifestyle. You want people to live, right? And that's the happy medium between both. Like my grandfather used to say all the time, he goes, Phil, go out one weekend, the other weekend, stay home. Go out one weekend, the other weekend, stay home. And when you do that, that's a strategy to save money. So if you like to go out to restaurants, don't go out to restaurant every other night or twice a week. Maybe you limit to once a week or maybe once or twice a month. And so when you instill these habits, Sabrina, you may have read this before, but when you want to instill a habit, it takes 21 days. If you really want to instill a habit, it takes 66 days. And that was a study that was done by a physician that when Marines came home from war, when they lost a limb, they obviously initially it was a big shock, but after 66 days, they showed that they got used to it, right? Nobody gets used to that, but you understand what I mean, psychologically.
Right.
So people have to get into a mindset of saving and understanding and learning how to save, and not just spending everything they have is definitely step 1, 2, and 3. And then investing is really important as well, because that's how you compound your money over time. But once you have the savings habit down, the investing habit will come right after that. So that's how I would look at that when it comes to money.
I love this. So, for a lot of people today, especially with inflation, I just read in the Wall Street Journal this morning that this is in the past 30 years, it's the highest inflation we've ever lived in as a country, which, people make jokes about it. They're at the gas station and they're it's like, have we fully come to the realization that the cost of shelter, the cost of energy, the cost of, transportation, for us, for the transportation industry to get those goods and services to us, it's all going up, and people are not making more money than the rate that these costs are rising.
Right.
And so what is going to happen from your point of view? I would like to know, like, what words of wisdom could you give to people that have the ability to earn an income right now? What should they do with their money? And then how do you prepare for what is going to happen? They always say it's going to get worse before it gets better, right? That's kind of like one of the laws of life, so you've been through multiple recessions, and I can't even imagine when you're holding a large chunk of people's money, you might get some serious phone calls and you have to calm people down. But like, what can you tell for us today? Like, if we're in that earning phase, like, why do we have to be incredibly savvy right now? Or do we spend? What words of wisdom can you give to us?
Yes, first of all, inflation is a concern. I've been very consistent in talking about inflation and my concern with that. It's going to be here longer than people think. The government's talking about inflation being temporary. I don't believe it's going to be temporary. So it's going to be something we're going to be living with at least going into next year, maybe the year after as well. So that's why investing matters. So when you invest your money, so think about cash today earning something less than 0.20%. If you factor in the CPI inflation number of 5 to 6%, your money, what you're earning on that money is a negative rate of return of 5%, right? So if you think about the value of that dollar today, within 12 or 13 years at a 5%, 6% inflation rate, that dollar is going to be worth zero. Whatever you're spending today will double in the next 17 years. So whatever your expenses are today will double in 17 years, right? Maybe even sooner if we're right about this inflation and what's going on, if you look at the average numbers, right? So now when you think about it from an investment perspective, and this is why it's so critical, because if you don't grow your money more than inflation, then your money is just going to erode due to inflation. So $1 million today is going to be worth $200,000 10 years from now, the value of $1 million, right? We've seen it already back when we were growing up. Not sure exactly how old you are, but back when I was growing up, making 50 grand, 100 grand was actually pretty decent back in the early 80s to mid 80s. Today making 50 or 100 grand, the after-tax dollars, that doesn't really get you to get what you want out there, right? So that's why when you're investing, you could average somewhere north of 5-6%, which keeps you ahead of inflation and keeps your purchasing power strong, when you think about your overall money. So investing money isn't just about having more money at the end, but it's also to stay ahead of inflation, which essentially what it means to us is our cost for food, our cost for shelter, our cost for energy, our cost to travel, our cost to go to a restaurant. So we want to stay ahead of that. And the only way to stay ahead of that is to grow our personal income, right? So if you make 100,000 today, you want to get to 200,000, you want to get to 300,000, you want to get to 400,000, right? So you want to do that because you could do other things you may desire in life, or whatever that looks like for you, and also just to stay ahead of the game as it relates to inflation.
Yeah, this is really important because, my audience, it's a lot of high performers, right? And when you're a high performing individual, you make money, your earning potential is really there, but it's so important to drill this into high performers to understand that it's not enough to just earn money. You have to learn how to keep money. Then you have to learn how to like reproduce the money or invest it to make it more valuable. In terms of for what people can do right now, what are some good things to invest into? So I know that you had this thing where you said, stay in your lane. And I love this because a lot of people get so sidetracked and distracted in their business. A lot of my audience were entrepreneurs, business owners. And so, there's this really popular phrase of, I want to be a serial entrepreneur. I want to own like 5 different businesses. And it just doesn't work out that way. Like the best people in business are like staying in their lane. Can you describe what that means? And is that a good thing to invest into your business?
Yeah, so two stay in your lane comments I want to make, right? One is the video that you had seen, right? So if you look at Zillow's earnings last quarter, in 2018, they wanted to get into the flipping house business. And fast forward to this recent earnings print, they lost millions of dollars because they totally got it wrong, right? You could maybe say this is a bubble. I think there's a bubble in real estate. Maybe this is some of the signs that it's going to pop, right? That's a whole nother conversation. But the point is Zillow had incredible business prior to doing that in 2018. They got out of their lane into a lane that they really didn't have expertise in. They thought they did, and it was unsuccessful. That doesn't mean that as a business owner, you can't get into other lanes and be successful, but you really have to be cautious, is my point, because one mistake you make with getting out of your lane into a different business segment, it could really cost you your business millions, which means it costs you personally millions, right? I don't know. I'm just such a huge, in my view, I am such a huge believer in the one thing. And there's a book about this too. Like, be great at what you do and focus your energy. That's all I've done my whole entire life, is focused my whole entire working career life is focused on wealth management and what I can do to really be the best I can for my clients. That's investments, that's financial planning and advanced planning, right? That's taxes, estate planning, like be abreast of everything that I need to know and being the best I possibly can be. And when you do that, I really do feel that your growth will be exponential over time, rather than me. As soon as I take my focus away from my business and move it into, let's say I want to start to get into real estate investing, like some of my colleagues have done, all of a sudden my energy in my body now moves there, which takes me away from my core. And I really believe I can't be the best I possibly can be at my core for my clients, which is the most important thing, because I'm taking energy out of my tank and I'm moving it to this other segment here. So that's what I mean when stay in your lane, because I really believe you can make the same money if you went to another segment, if not more, by being the best you possibly can be at what you can be. So that's the first thing as it relates to people's core business. The second, stay in your lane, which I mean more than anything, which is a biased comment. I don't care though, because it's the reality, is stay in your lane when it comes to managing your money, right? Stay in your lane when it comes to managing your own money, right? Don't try to manage your own money, right? Hire a professional managing money. The richest people in the world have a CPA, have a business attorney, have an estate and trust attorney, have a financial advisor, have insurance advisors, have property and casualty agents. They have a team around them that's helping them get through life and make all the best financial decisions. So when it comes to staying in your lane as it relates to managing your money, stay in your lane and do what you do best, whether it's your career or whatever it is. Let the professionals manage your money and take care of that. And there's only one reason people that listen to this need to understand why. Because all you need to do is make one mistake with managing your own money, and it can cost you a lifetime. And so you ask me, well, Phil, why are you saying that? Right? I'm saying that because I'm doing this for 20 plus years. And I literally, somebody saw me on CNBC, called me up. They live in Staten Island. And when he called me up, this gentleman, he's 65 years old, retired, had a $3 million portfolio or somewhere around there. And in March 2020, when the stock market hit a low, he sold out of his portfolio. And guess what? Here we are today, 2021 November, and he still has not gotten back into his portfolio the way it was before. So how much money did he cost himself? 500,000, 800,000, somewhere in there. So how long is it going to take for him to make that up? Now he's looking to get in after the market's at all-time highs. Sabrina, this happens all the time. And he's managing money on his own. And by the way, I totally get, if people listen to this, that there are bad apples in the financial advisory industry. Totally get it, right? There's bad apples in the medical business. There's bad apples from an attorney standpoint, CPAs. So I totally understand that, especially for the financial industry. I feel like they've definitely gotten a bad rap. That's why I went independent and got away from Wall Street. But if you find the right person, it can make a world of a difference when it comes to managing your money. A world of a difference.
Yeah, I really enjoy that you're saying this, because, I'm in insurance, and a lot of people in the insurance industry, they call themselves financial planners. And I'm like, you're not a financial planner. And
True.
I hate it. I hate it when they say this, because this is, to me, what I've always said, like, stay in your lane. Let And when we meet customers, I'm so big on, if you need another product, I want to refer you to a specialist that knows
Right.
more than me. Let me do my job and let me refer you out to someone who can do their job better than me. And that's really what, putting the customer and the client first means.
Yes.
This is core to your business. I wanted to go into this a little bit. When did this become eye-opening to you that, like, it is about the client, it is about the customer? A lot of people in business, like, they say this because it sounds good to say this, but, like, what do you do in your practice to make sure that the client is first? And what made you come to this realization that if you're not serving your customer, you probably won't have a future business? It's just a matter of time before it catches up with you. Because this is really big in today's day and age, when trust is at an all-time low. This is what people are looking for. They're looking for a place where they can go, they can trust that this person has their best interest at heart, instead of, I'm a business, I need to make money, I need to make a profit. And that's your slogan. It's not just about you making a profit. It really is about your client first. And I really just have a lot of respect for that. What can you share with, how did you come to that realization, and what do you guys do to make sure that your customers feel that and experience that?
It was just like super important, right? So Mr. Takita, a business owner that I had met when I was like 4 years in the business, and he decided to do business with me at the time. And I sat down with him, we started to grow a relationship. I said, Mr. Takita, I said, he was running a $25 million revenue practice, a business, right? He was importing goods from China. And I said, how'd you become so successful? He goes, Phil, he looked me in the eye. He goes, Phil, I never followed money. I followed my passion, and money followed me. That is so, like, me and my wife were talking about that literally just this morning. She was like, Phil, she goes, you drive that you have, and like, what do somebody asked her, well, he's driving because, he wants to make more money. Somebody said that to her. And my wife, she knows me. And she goes, no, that's not how Phil thinks. Phil, and I say this all the time, like, I don't think about money. I think about how can it be the best I possibly can. So my clients can say, like, if I die tomorrow, my clients could come to my funeral and say to my mom, like, this guy was the best thing that ever happened to me. He really cared. He really served me. Like, that's what you have to, Sabrina, today people in the service business, they do a terrible job. They just don't get it. The reason why I fell in love with Steve Carlos is because the guy is just like, gets it. He's like, he's on your team. He wants you to be the best. And that's like exactly how I am with my clients, right? And because you go out there in the world, especially the financial services industry, the reason why I left Wall Street is because clients were reading headlines with these Wall Street firms getting sued for various erroneous, egregious practices, right? So here I am under that umbrella, like, Phil has to be guilty of that because he's underneath this umbrella. And obviously I always ran a straight practice. I'm doing this for 20 plus years. You said it before, right? I've been through 2 markets down 50%. I never got one complaint from a client. You could look it up on Finra's website, ever. Like, that's like ridiculous, right? With markets being down 50% twice and everything we've been through. So, but I always thought, like, I had to be with Wall Street because the big name behind and all that type of stuff. But that's when I made the transition. 98% of my clients transitioned over, and my practice has grown 37% in a year and 7 months, a year and 8 months approximately. So, and I really believe it's this passion I have. Like, I want people to know, like, I'm there for you. I'm here for you. I care for you. Clients will call me Saturday. I'll call them right back. So if people grasp the concept is, first, you have to have the passion first for what you do. And if you don't, you got to get out of it as soon as possible, right? So you got to have that passion first. Once you have that passion, it's game over. You'll have everything you want in life, your desires you have in life, and you're truly taking care of people, right? I'm not a priest or anything like that. What they do, I think, is, and people, that are religious, I think is, they really serve the people. Like, that's kind of like, I think, like, I serve people. That's what I do, right? When it comes to the finances. And the thing that's so great about, what I do is I'm part of the 3-legged stool, right? Health is first, family, and then the third is money. So I'm really a big part of people's lives.
Yeah, this is good. I loved what you said about, just the thing that drives you. And for a lot of people, like, especially like a spouse can say like, when is enough enough? But it's not about the money. Like when you have an internal drive to be the best at what you do, because you're representing something so much more than yourself. You're thinking about the customers and their experience. You're thinking about your team and the people that you really work for, like they're your team. You want to give them the best experience. I love that, because a lot of people don't understand that. They think people that make money are chasing money and it's like greed, but it totally isn't that. It's not greed. There's something inside of a person that is, ferocious in their attempt to become the best, and not just for their ego. It's because of who they are working with, for, and what they want to be known for when
Right.
when they pass. I
Right.
love that you said that. Moving into legacy, this is a really big thing for myself. I always think, I've been fortunate to think, okay, well, my children, I want them to be set up well. And I want, now I'm thinking of my children's children. I want for them to be set up well. So, and that's not just with money, right? There's things that I teach to our children. You know, when you look, education is a big deal for me. When you look at the school systems today, like, what do you think we could do better to make the youth learn about money and learn about being in business? It's funny, when I was looking at last year, when our child was on Zoom with the teacher, she gave him an assignment, like, pick what career you want to, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there were all these government options, right? And he looked at me and he was like, I don't want to be any of these things. I'm like, well, put down what you want to be. And he was like, a race car driver. I was like, okay, so draw that. And then the teacher came to him and she was like, that wasn't an option. And I had to like say to her, I'm like, that's okay. He can think for himself.
Absolutely.
So like, in your experience of management,
Right.
what can we do for our youth? And I'm really asking this because as a mother of 3, I really care that our children are mentally prepared. You said that part of your practice with asset protection is making sure the children and the grandchildren are properly educated with money. I don't think there's anything more important. Like, what do you do to educate them? And what can we do as parents to properly educate our children so that, they don't take what we've worked so hard for and just buy 10 Lamborghinis or whatever they think is cool.
Yeah. Well, first you'd set up trust so your kids can't go out and buy them.
Yes.
That's
Okay, so this is good. So explain what a trust is. I want for people to really get this. Like, it's so important for people to understand, what is a trust?
Yeah. So there are 2 types of trust, right? There's one that's called revocable trust. That means that you can set the trust up and you could revoke it any time. In other words, you can just get rid of the trust completely if you decide to do that, right? Then there's the irrevocable trust, means that once you set up that trust, you can never change that trust. So if you set up an irrevocable trust and move $5 million, $1 million into that trust, you cannot take that money out of that trust and put it back into your account. It becomes irrevocable. Now, in New York State, you actually can revoke an irrevocable trust, but not all states allow for that. But that's a whole other story. But so there are 2 types of trust.
Okay, so why would someone have an irrevocable trust?
Okay, so irrevocable trust, to keep it as simple as possible, can be used to avoid federal estate taxes or New York State estate taxes. So when we die, which is really wild, right? Because we paid all these income taxes throughout our life. Now, when we die, if husband and wife, if they're worth over $25 million today, call it, let's say they're worth 30 million. So they're $5 million over the threshold. Then they'll have to pay 50% of that 5 million to the government, right? Which is $2.5 million. When you set up trust, especially today, even if you're worth 15 million today, right? If you're worth 15 million today, In 20 years, most likely that'll double to 30 million. Now you're over that threshold of 25 million, right? So now in 2026, like I said to you before, husband and wife each get 25 million, each get 12 and a half, approximately 12 and a half million dollars each today. That's 25 million, right? In 2026, that's going to sunset and change to 6 million per each individual. So now it's 12 million. So the whole goal of an irrevocable trust is two things. One is you fund the trust today. Let's say I'm worth 10 million. You move 5 million into the trust today. That's irrevocable. Now that money is out of your estate today. Now, if I take that 5 million and grow to 100 million in 20 years, that money, and then I die, that money is never calculated for estate tax purposes ever. So what you're seeing today, which is really important for people who are listening that are worth over $25 million or even over 12, today, what people are trying to do before next year is setting up these irrevocable trusts. It's called a SLAT, a spousal lifetime asset trust, a SLAT. It's a strategy for husband and wife to put away, like I just said, part of your estate assets. So it's out of your estate and can grow out of your estate. So down the road, you never have to worry about paying taxes on that money. So it's irrevocable. So the government says, okay, as long as you take the money and you put it out of your name into this trust, and you have no control of that money. In other words, if I put 5 million in there, right, I can't then take that 5 million to buy a home in the Hamptons. It's the only thing I can do is I can live off the income of that trust, right, every year. But I don't have control. I'm not able to take that money out at will. Because once I do that, then the government says, you have control of this money. We're putting this back into your estate if you ever get audited or your estate gets audited when you die, whenever it is time down the road. So trusts are used for one, federal estate tax, just like I said, okay? Mm-hmm. Revocable trusts are set up to put all your assets in. So when you die, the money goes to your family right away. You don't have to go through probate courts. You don't have to deal with judges, and you don't have to deal with the cost of hiring an attorney to go to probate for your family. So it saves you money from that perspective, and the family gets money right away. Sometimes kids need the money right away for whatever reason, funeral expenses and a whole host of things. Maybe medical expenses that came about, right? So revocable trust is a little bit more liberal in terms of the rules versus irrevocable. The other purpose, and Sabrina, I say this all the time, right? So we all work very, very hard to get where we are today, and we'll continue to do that. So I am such a big believer. I have 3 boys, you can see behind me. One day they're going to get married. I don't know what that dynamic is going to look like. Whether I love them or don't love them, right? I want to make sure that my hard-earned money, my wife who contributed to helping me get where I am today, that we keep that money in the bloodline and control that money when we're not here. Trusts give you the ability to do that. So to summarize what I just said, trusts are used to avoid and minimize federal estate taxes and New York State estate taxes, or if you live in a different state, right? Whatever the ruling is, every state is different. And revocable trust assist with probate, etc. And then trusts are also used to keep the money in the bloodline. Obviously, there's also special needs trust. If there's a situation with one of your children, that's utilized for purposes to support the child throughout their lifetime. So that's a different type of trust. But that's like high level, right? What trusts are all about. And they're phenomenal tools. I've been using it on my whole entire career. Super interesting. I've saved clients millions of dollars when they passed away. And the thing, Sabrina, which is really interesting. I remember there was one client of mine who I said, Jerry, you really have to go meet with the attorney. He goes, Phil, but I don't want to pay the cost. I said, Jerry, I'm telling you, this is what you need to do. So I pushed him to meet with the attorney. So we met with the attorney, he goes through the whole strategy, and we'll save the client $500,000 in estate taxes if he would have died the next day, as an example, right? So we get back. So the attorney sends us the cost if he drew the trust up, and it was $8,000. So Jerry calls me up. He goes, well, I'm not paying $8,000. Forget about it. I go, Jerry, but you're going to save $400,000. He goes, call him back and see if you can do it for $6,500. I go, Jerry, I don't think this is negotiable, but let me see. Called up this attorney. I said, listen, this is an old school guy. Could you do it for $6,500? He's like, Phil, I'll do it for $7,000. I said, oh, great. Called Jerry back. Long story short, he did it. And he passed away 6 months later or something like that. And I saved the family $400,000 or $500,000 just by executing this trust. But it's see, what I do as a personal CFO to my clients is push them to do things that they wouldn't do because they're busy with life, they don't understand it.
Yeah.
But it's those little things that make a big difference.
No, it's so important because, you have to, all these things that we don't seek advice for, it's incredibly important. That's why I love having these conversations, because there's a lot of things that you will bring up that we don't even think about, because we're so busy with our day-to-day activities, right? In terms of like educating children, what would you say are like some key things to just make sure that they understand money, how it works, and then to make sure that they are responsible individuals so that when they do have that money, that they do the right thing with it?
Unfortunately, some children will grow up a certain way versus their brothers and sisters. In other words, one child may be really good with not spending money, and another child may be really bad and spends a lot of money. And no matter what you teach in the household, I mean, it definitely can help. But just like anything else in life, sometimes it's just the personality of the child.
Right.
The number one thing that we can do is, which I do all the time with my three boys, is try to teach them the value of a dollar, whatever that means, right? So, for example, if they do a chore around the home and we pay them $5, I always teach them, let's put 50%, let's invest that. The other 50%, go out and buy yourself something you deserve because you did the chore. So you try to instill this investing. I'm always instilling them the helping them understand, investing in stocks of great businesses. Like Roblox came out with actually the stocks are big this morning. Roblox is a big game that the kids play, and the company went public, and I noticed how much I was spending on Roblox for the kids. And so I helped them understand that concept, right? Hey kids, you're playing with Roblox, it's a great company, right? You like the game? Yes, Dad, I love the game. We spent a lot of money again. Yes, Dad, we did. Well, hey, the company came public. Now look at the revenues and look at the growth of that. That's an example of by investing your money and understanding business and what that can mean to the growth of your money over time. So I think helping them understand the stock market, real estate investing, business, and having these conversations, just like I help them with lacrosse, right? I go in the backyard, so you got to also spend the time to help them understand money, because that's so important. As you know, Sabrina, right? In schools, it's a disaster. There's no teaching of financial planning or money matters. Just think about this conversation we're having now, the value a kid can get, by understanding and listening to what I'm saying. And then, you take it, then you start to get into the weeds with them. But schools are not doing that enough, which is a big problem.
Yeah, it is. The other thing that, is a major issue for a lot of people are taxes. How do you navigate, and especially for people that are earning a lot right now, like what advice do you give to them to protect themselves in the future? Because, do you feel like taxes are just going to keep skyrocketing up? Where do you see the country going in terms of all that's happening, with them increasing the debt ceiling and doing this? I wanted you to explain this, because we hear these terms, but I wanted you to just break down, what does it mean to a country when they increase their debt ceiling, and how does this then trickle down to everyday working people? Because a lot of people that are working, they think like, I don't even know what's going on. I'm just going to keep working, minding my own business. But it does have an effect on us. It has an effect on all of us, so what does it mean when they increase the debt ceiling, and how does this like trickle down and really affect all of us in this country?
Right. So there are two things to understand. One is the debt that we have in this country, which is north of 28, $29 trillion, right? A lot of that debt that we have as a country, just like debt we have as individuals, right? You own a home that's $1 million, maybe you have $800,000 in debt. Our country has debt of north of 28 or $29 trillion. That debt has accumulated because of the financial crisis in 2008, right? And COVID also brought that number up to the level I just explained. So that's problem number one. Now, why is that problematic? Well, so we are the world's reserve currency. Our dollar is the world's reserve currency. So before the US became the world's reserve currency, other countries were over 100 years ago, right? There was like 4 other countries that were. And the reason why those other countries lost that status is because of high debt levels. So in terms of a country, and that could be one of the reasons why cryptocurrency is doing what it's doing. I'm not an investor in cryptocurrency. I think it's speculative. Doesn't mean it can't go up or down. I don't really, I mean, I care, but I don't. So, but that could be one of the reasons why you see cryptocurrency doing well. So high debts can cause an issue with the dollar, right? Which affects all of us because we own dollars. That's number one. Number two, we have a deficit in this country. Before COVID, we had $1 trillion deficit, right? So that means, so think about this. Let's say you make 100,000, but your expenses are 200,000. You're running at a deficit every year of $100,000. Our deficit in this country per year went from $1 trillion to $4 to $5 trillion per year because of the interest expense from all the debt that we have in Social Security, Medicare, et cetera. So we don't have enough. So now how do you solve that deficit? You have to have tax revenue, which is our main income of our country, just like we have income ourselves. The income of the country is tax revenue. So when you think about taxes, you think about it from the standpoint that they have to go up. If they don't go up, where's the government going to get the money from? Are we going to grow our way out of this? In other words, so if you think about it like this, if hypothetically speaking, we grow by 5% per year, the next 10 years, that'll affect incomes from a positive standpoint. So incomes will rise, which means more tax revenue, which could assist in paying off deficits and debts, right? So you could say one way, well, is it possible this country can grow by 5% to pass the next 10 years, 15 years? Well, the last 20 years, 15 years, we grew by 2 or less. So we've been very stagnant as a country in terms of growth. So maybe with this infrastructure plan bill that was put through, that could assist, right? So that's a positive. But I think growing our way out of it could be very difficult in my view. So I think taxes has to go up to help assist this country stop the bleeding with all the debts and deficits, right? So that, to answer your question, that's how we can get affected. And the third way to get out of this debt is to let inflation run hot. So if you think about the dollar, like I said before, at 4%, the dollar would be essentially worth zero in, like, don't quote me on this, call it, I don't know, 16 years, 17 years, somewhere around there, right? So if we have debt of 30 trillion today, if inflation averages 4 to 5% the next 15, 17 years, the value of debt will be zero. So you can inflate our way out of this. I don't know if that's complicated to understand, but you can inflate your way out of debt because your debt today at 30 trillion, well, if inflation runs at 4 to 5%, well, like a dollar is worth zero 15, 16 years ago, your debt of 30 trillion goes to zero. So we can inflate our way out of this is the other option. And inflation affects our disposable income, right? So to answer your question, it's tax rates going up, which I really believe people making under $400,000 will be fine, which is 98% of America. But the people that are in that 1% bracket, are going to be paying, in my view, greater taxes. Now, with the recent, I don't want to go off too much on this, but the recent elections that we saw last week, right, with the victory in Virginia and New Jersey, where Governor Murphy almost lost that run, that shows you that the Democrats really need to wake up here, because if they don't, they may lose the House in 2022 during the midterm elections. And if that happens, we'll have a lame duck, which means that taxes may not go up, right? So that's where we are in terms of it's going to be a political situation in terms of where we go with taxes. But I think how we get affected personally is going to be tax rates going up and inflation being here longer than people think.
Yeah, I think that it's really important for people to just understand what's going on, and there's no such thing as something happening and it not affecting you. And sometimes we're going through the motions of our days and say, like, it's too complicated to understand, but I think it's really important and that's why I appreciate you taking the time just to break this stuff down for people so that they have a better understanding of it. You have this equation for wealth management that I really like, where You talk about wealth management is investment consulting plus advanced planning plus relationship management. Could you just to summarize everything, could you tie those all together? Why do we need to have investment consulting? Like, why can we not just, I'm going to take care of this myself? That might not be a good plan. Why do we have to have advanced planning? A lot of people are planning for, they have okay, this is what I'm going to do today. But, how far into the future do you need to go? And then relationship management, what is that? And why do we need that?
Okay, so the wealth management formula was developed to help people understand, okay, what is this term wealth management, right? People ask me all the time, hey, Phil, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I own my own wealth management firm. If I ask that person to describe what he thinks I do, they won't be able to really describe that, right? They don't really understand, like, what is wealth management, right? So, and if you ask 10 people in my industry what wealth management is, you'll get 10 different answers. So what I did is created this formula, right, with the help of a coach. And the formula is wealth management equals IC, which is investment consulting, which is the first part. So investment consulting is, okay, Sabrina, what is your vision for your life? And you'll say whatever it is, right? Okay, well, that vision costs something. So let's go through an analysis to help you understand, are you at the point today where you can stop working or make work optional or and accomplish this vision you want to accomplish? You have to go through a thorough analysis to see if you saved enough money, if you invested properly, that will give you enough income to live this vision, right? So we have to go through the analysis first on the investment consulting. Once we go through the analysis and we go through the details of that, then it's like, okay, Phil, the analysis is great. You helped me understand I could accomplish my vision. Now what? Okay, well, Sabrina, here's how I propose managing your money. Now, the investment strategy now is tied to your financial plan, which will help you stay on track versus just on a whim saying, hey, I'm going to invest in Bitcoin, or I'm going to invest in Ethereum, or I'm going to invest in Microsoft stuff. And that, like, there's no method behind your strategy. Where on investment consulting, we went through it and solved for accomplishing your vision. Now, the investment strategy is tied to that. So that's the investment consulting part, right? So people put the cart before the horse when it's supposed to be the reverse of that. So that's investment consulting. So now after you get through investment strategy, then you got to go through advanced planning. So now when it comes to income taxes, how much are you paying in taxes? Are you doing all you can to minimize income taxes? If you suddenly die tomorrow, who inherits your money? Are you comfortable with that? If you became incoherent, how does that affect your money and your family? If you needed long-term care at some point, how does that affect your situation? If you died suddenly, like I talked about before, what does it mean to your family? If you're charitably inclined, how do we magnify gifts to your charity? And then what's the dynamics like with your children and or grandchildren, right? So that's the advanced planning part, because you want to make sure all that stuff is really tightened up, right? Because you want to make sure, okay, here's where you are, here's where you want to go. What gaps are you exposed to right now? And what can we do to close those gaps? Everything on the investment consulting side and the advanced planning side. That's the goal. And the RM, which is the relationship manager part. Now, I'm a certified financial planner, so I understand a lot of these areas. Obviously, it's what I got taught. However, I don't execute on taxes every day. I don't do estate and trust planning every day. So that's why relationship manager is the client. Let's say you have your own CPAs, your own attorneys, your own insurance advisors, which you are, et cetera, great. So I have my own team that are my strategic partners, and we'll sit down at a round table and review your advanced planning, and they'll come back to me and say, okay, when I went through Sabrina's profile, here's what we noticed: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Great. I take that, I go back to you, the client, and I say, Sabrina, here's the things you need to take care of. Great, Phil, my CPA I really like. I'm going to go back to my CPA with this action, but I don't really have an estate attorney, so can I use yours? Yes, great, use mine. So relationship management is what I said before, is every successful person has a team around them to help them with investment consulting and advanced planning. Hopefully that was
this was perfect. It's really important for people to just get exposed to this. A lot of people probably feel like this is a very daunting thing, but I think when they get to hear from you, they'll understand like it's a necessary thing, and people will speak in a language that you understand and you can ask questions. And I think it really is developing a relationship with someone who knows more so that you can get the process going. It doesn't mean you're going to go and you're going to learn everything you need to know in one meeting, but it's an ongoing process, because
Right.
we make more money. Sometimes we have like down years, whatever it may be, but when you have a coach in your corner,
Right.
it's easier to navigate through those ups and downs, and it creates more stability in your life, which is a very nice thing. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. I know this will help a lot of people. And, for the Palumbo Wealth Management company, it's great to have good people on your side, and you are one of those great companies. So thank you for the good work that you do to really service people. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sabrina. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you.